All right, so we're bringing you some more really fast content that this is probably gonna be a same day upload if everything goes according to plan. We did our video about New World. There's such a big discussion taking place there, whether or not it's specific to the EVGA 3090 for the Win 3, which clearly has the highest representation of any card that was failing with that game. However, since that video, I asked you guys, if you've had weird issues with this title, write me and tell me about it. We got some really interesting stuff now that I want to sort of investigate, and that's what we're going to do today. This video is sponsored by Micro Center and their Custom PC Builder. Use the Custom PC Builder to plan your next build, and when parts are added to your cart and in-store pickup is selected, you'll have the option for a Micro Center technician to fully build your PC for an extra fee. And if the order is placed at least 4 hours before closing, you can enjoy your new PC the very same day. Get the best prices and parts selection at any of Micro Center's 25 locations across the United States. And right now, new customers can get a free pair of wireless headphones while supplies last. In-store only, limit 1 per email. To see everything Micro Center has to offer and to learn more about this limited time free headphone giveaway, click the link in the description below. Okay, so obviously this is after the video we did about New World and how it was exposing some sort of weird issues in graphics cards. As you can see here, I've loaded up my 3090 for the Win 3. Key takeaways from this. One, this is one of like the very, very first edition of these cards. They've made some changes. You can tell it has the red clown lips. I don't know if there's been revisions to like any sort of component suppliers, which I think is natural over the, it's been almost a year now. As these cards go through manufacturing, I think some component changes might happen. So keep this in mind. This is a very early edition. What we're looking for here, although they patched the game, and I'm not happy with the community post that basically said, we've had millions of hours and hundreds of thousands of players hop on, and we've only had a few cards die, but we went ahead and limited the FPS in the menu, even though we don't think that's what was causing it. It was not a very comforting statement. It really sounded like a lawyer wrote that, but I digress. What we're looking for here is, I don't think the card is going to physically be damaged because of that. Although, I'm not so convinced because the amount of people that were emailing me, which by the way, thank you, those of you that actually wrote me decent emails explaining in detail what you were doing, what was happening, what the usage was. You even had, some of you had OSDs, almost said OCD, which is perfect. The OCD type should be writing me during this. Were able to give me all sorts of data that I could sort of hone in on what we're looking for in today's video. So a lot of them died in the game, which means could still happen. The menu was just, I think because it had the runaway FPS in the menu, which is not normal and also not rare. Doom Eternal has runaway FPS. Doom did. I think Far Cry 5 during the little splash screen, you would hear the card just coil whine and buzz like crazy because we would look, and then with our OSD, we'd see like 5,000 FPS. That's not abnormal. What's abnormal is it doing that while at 100% load and seeing the temperatures just skyrocket. Because another thing that I got some information on from various people that wrote me was that they were seeing with limited FPS, like capping it at 60, they would still see their fans go to 100% and the temperatures continue to climb like well above where the temperature threshold is set to. So something is causing the load, whether it's the way DX11 calls are happening with the API, don't know. I'm not a driver expert. I've had plenty of people have those discussions on Twitter. I can't participate in those because I don't write drivers. I don't know much about that. But one guy was basically like, no, absolutely, DX11 could be at fault here with some sort of a unused call that's rare, and if it's being used and MSI hasn't capped it, yada yada, it could just kind of run away, and that's probably a very bad explanation of it. But the fact that he even said that got me thinking that could explain. So many of you are like, software can't break a component, but absolutely it can, because software is what drives a component. Component's gonna do what the software tells it to do. That's how it works, even if there's safeguards. And safeguards are not designed to be hit and used over and over and over, like overcurrent protection and shutdowns and stuff. You do it enough, eventually something's gonna happen. I'm hoping something happens here today, but I'm also hoping not. Because the other things I realized in the emails is I had 3080 Ti's, 3090s, 6800s, 6000 XTs, 6900 XTs, and an RX 570. I think someone chimed in on Twitter with an RTX 2070. We're seeing cards all over the spectrum, not just the 3090 for the Win 3, which everyone is blaming for this. Now I know that sounds like a very EVGA, shilly, fanboy, spin doctoring, but they have the most 3090s in the wild, and it makes sense to me that there would be more of them exhibiting problems if they have a high representation of the percentage in the wild. If our card blows up, you can take from that data what you want. Also, a huge thank you to JD on Twitter. Our beta access has not gone active, so he was gracious enough to allow us to use his account to come in here and do the testing. So huge thank you to you. You know who you are. And let's go ahead and get this fired up. This is our first time loading this up. All right, so it's limited to 60 FPS right here, which is already good. I'm not seeing any sort of crazy FPS increase. I'm not seeing any crazy megahertz increase, and the power limit or power draw is really low. Also too, it's important that we are on the latest Windows, not Windows 11, but latest Windows 10 build. We are also on the latest drivers, 471 dot something. All right, here we go. 100 FPS, 69 degrees, 98% usage, 1710 megahertz, 321 watts, 525 watts total power draw. This is an 850 watt power supply from NZXT. It's 80 plus gold. All right, let's go back to 1080. Let's see if we can't get some FPS to go up here. Oh, see, power voltage is what we're limited at right now, which is normal. I mean,
not at 57% util though.
Oh, good point. Yeah, this is really odd right here. This is power percent, or that's like total TDP percent. This is actual GPU usage here. The reason why I had that there is so I can see if we're hitting 100. So yeah, we're drawing nearly 100% of this card's power at 59% usage at 1080. The power limit here should correlate with here. We should not see this going 10% above that. We've never, in any of our overclocking escapades, have we ever seen the power limit go that far above, and that's at 120, go that far above our power limit that's set for that long. I mean, we've seen it go a few percent above, not 10 to 20% above. This is gonna turn into the most boring nothing happened video, which could be the best case scenario if, this is such speculation. What if Amazon actually figured out their problem and patched it and then just covered it up with the whole like, oh, we fixed the menu? I wouldn't put it past Amazon if you want to know the truth. I really wouldn't. Yeah, this behavior is normal. I'm gonna touch the back of the GPU core right now with my thermometer here. Although, is this metal? Okay, the back plate itself. Jay killed his card because he was stupid. And you know me and the heat thing with my hands. Nick, come here.
Yeah, it's hot, dude.
Like really hot, right?
That's like,
That seems hotter than I've ever remembered this card getting.
that's like starting up a barbecue kind of hot.
That's exactly where the VRM heat is right there. The VR, ow, jeez.
Stop touching.
Well, I'm used to not be getting burned. I'm just gonna stick this in the back plate right there. Oh! No, we had smoke. It burned the end. It didn't hurt the card though. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna tape it. This is the heat that's either radiating off the backside of the card or making its way through the thermal pads that are on the backside of the memory to the card. All right, I'm gonna install ICX. That way we can actually monitor the VRM temps. This card is making a very weird sound when I start the game. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my mic near the back of it. Did you hear that? It's all, and that's not fans. That's an inductor. Different from coil whine. Coil whine's a pretty consistent high pitch. That's a low kind of a. It's a weird sound. Power is up in the 60s and 70s. That's not abnormal. That's pretty normal, honestly. I think I need to try another 3090 to see if we get the same kind of weird behavior. Okay, so I have the MSI Gaming X Trio on here, which is exhibiting much more typical behavior of what I would expect. So let me go back to MSI Afterburner. If I put defaults on here, look, 99 to 100%. This is that percent slider of power use, or power draw, or power limit, I should say. This is the GPU usage, this GPU temp. These are fan speeds. The reason I did that is because I had reports of people saying the fans would go to 100% just instantly, and so I just wanted, rather than using my ears and eyes, I wanted to see it. But look at the power limit, or the power watts, too many numbers. That's much more indicative of what we'd expect. This is a 370 watt card. It's a 20 watt uplift over the factory like 3090 Founders Edition. So if I go in here now and I just go to the 102, the MSI was really conservative on the power limit they would go with on this card. So, but I can raise the temperature to 91 now and hit check mark. Look, remember how I said it would go a couple of percent above where you set it and come back? Check it out, 101, 103, and it'll probably go back to 100. 102, 104, 105, 103. This card, as a sanity check, just sort of told me right now things are not normal with the other card. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and switch it back to the 3090, well, to the 3090 for the win card, and to see if I can't get something to happen here. So before we continue, I want to take the back plate off and inspect the back side of the card, because you guys couldn't really see it on camera, but I did see smoke for a second. Okay, well, everything seems to be normal. I don't see any burn spots. Back here. All right, let's get this back on the test bench. Come back, turkey. I'm hungry. Yeah, everything looks normal. Like everything kind of, yeah, we're hitting a core clock limit now before we're hitting a power limit. All right, should we go back to 4K now? What I want you to watch right now, that versus this. There's massive swing. See, 412, 366. But the core clock didn't change much. The core clock, I think, went down one step, 15 megahertz. Yeah, 1875 to, okay. So it stayed at 1875 and it went from like 416 down to 370 watts. So there's a 50 watt swing there. And one of the things I said that I think could be bad for some of these cards, and this is also what can trip OCP, and when I say these cards, I guess we're zeroing in on the For the Win 3, is big swings. And if it spikes too high suddenly, wasn't this the conversation we had about MLCC versus POS caps last year? When people were getting the shutdowns and stuff, because if it suddenly swings too high, about dirty power, a big discussion happened there. But if it swings too high too fast, like whatever's causing it with this card, and we did not see that with MSI, period, that could be what triggers the OCP. But if it does it too many times or too far, and the OCP doesn't react fast enough, then that could cause physical damage, I would assume. But here's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna take a break, it's lunchtime. I think we're just gonna let this sit here and we'll see if anything happens in the meantime. All right, so it kicked us due to inactivity, but we were sitting in the menu where it's rendered. Remember, the menu was still where people were having problems. Absolutely nothing out of the ordinary whatsoever right now. Here's another thing though. In lunchtime, I did have a conversation with EVGA because I straight up asked them, what are you guys gonna do for the customers that have EVGA cards that have failed while playing this game? And it was kind of surprised actually. Remember, this all went down yesterday. He said, oh, they're already getting their replacement cards. And I went, really? He goes, all the RMAs, their replacement 3090s are shipping today. So not only did EVGA, acknowledge that obviously something happened to the card, it sounds like they're cross shipping with the RMA, obviously the RMA numbers, for the cards that are coming in, have accepted the responsibility for it. And those people already have cards on the way. Apparently they already had inventory of 3090s ready to go for RMAs like this. So those people are down for limited amounts of time without being out of pocket, which I think is amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such an EVGA fanboy, because sure, everyone has problems with certain brands and people have problems with EVGA, and there's no brand, period, that someone hasn't had problems or bad experiences with. But EVGA is the one that consistently stands up and respects the warranty and gets it fixed and gets it repaired and takes care of the customer. That's one of the reasons why I've been a fan of EVGA since 2001 when I had my first EVGA card. So I also asked him what his behavior was like with his card. And it's funny because, well, I guess our situation isn't exactly universal because of the fact that he's running the XOC BIOS, which is not the other BIOS we have with the extreme overclocking profile, but a more public one. So he was actually drawing more watts than we are. He was drawing something like 460 watts or something like that because he had like plus 119 or plus 19% power limit or something like that. But here's the thing. It's acting normal at the moment. Nothing weird is happening. Consistent FPS, consistent usage, temperature is perfectly in line. Core clock's exactly where I expect it to be. That is still what's bothering me right there though, because we're set to 107 and it's going to 119, 120 as you can see. So far it hasn't had any sort of an anomalous effect. So because I couldn't get anything weird to happen in the game, we've now been doing this for about almost 3 hours of constant abuse like this. Abusing it like this, turkey! I'm not drawing any conclusions of this. This is just my experience so far with this particular card. But one thing I need to do now is I have to see if we're getting the same kind of behavior with that power limit in another title. All right, so right off the bat, so 122%, which is farther, it makes sense though actually, because the RT cores are doing something. No, they're not, this is not RT, that's right. I think DLSS is on though. So the tensor cores are doing something. Yeah, 118, 117, 116. That should not be going above 107 or within a couple of percent of it. So there's one more thing I can do a la Mythbusters style. When you can't prove or disprove a particular myth, you force it to happen. The other way I can do that is I can flip this little switch right here, load up our unlimited 900 watt BIOS, and see what happens. For those of you that don't understand, we're not going to be forcing 900 watts down the GPU. The GPU can request up to 900 watts, no additional voltage allowed to it. So it's just going to go as far as it wants to go, and voltage is going to be our limiter at that point. I just want to see if what happens to our wattage, because we obviously saw that wattage can go higher than what we'd expect based on the setting that we set. 532, 535, so you're limited by voltage. So we have an 850 watt power supply, so that's a little bit of an issue maybe. Dude, the wattage though is so high, 530. But I mean, if something were gonna fail, right? I mean, these are the conditions at which I think it would be realistic to expect it to fail. This feels like Witcher meets Warcraft meets Diablo. Yeah, I mean, nothing's happening, except the GPU's a little warm. I'm at 80C. Then again, I didn't up the fan curve, but I sure as heck up the power, that it's asking for here. One of the questions I asked specifically in my last video for anyone that was going to be sending me information was, tell me if you're using pigtails or not, power supply specs, like full system specs. And if everyone's being honest, then nobody was running pigtails. Except we're about to.
No, no.
This is not natural. Some might consider this to be unnatural. Oh, wrong button. There we go. No equipped knife. Yeah, I need a knife to skin it. But then we get skin. Would I get meat out of it? It doesn't matter. There's not a whole lot of meat to this video because you know what? Nothing happened. So I'm gonna go ahead and increase the power limit to 214 with pigtails. What could go wrong? Not a whole lot. This is not to be mistaken for condoning this level of behavior. This is expected probably for a little while to be okay. How hot is that cable now? Wow. There's a measurable difference between this single one, which is like room temp, and this one. Anyway, final thoughts here. It's probably safe to play New World, which this might make a couple of things seem like, well, what's unprecedented in this, first of all, is one, how quickly the developers even came out with a statement. Although, again, that statement I find to be very non-comforting, because to me, I feel like that statement basically said, that's not a problem. We fixed that, but that's not a problem. That's not why your cards died. Look at all those people whose cards were fine. Their cards had some other reason, but we went ahead and fixed the problem you guys are complaining about. That's not a problem. Written by our lawyers, TM. That's what I feel like that statement basically was. The second thing that came out of this is the fact that this might be the fastest I've ever seen a company from any AIB acknowledge that there's an issue, not even know what the root cause of the issue is. Is it a hardware issue on their end? Is it a software thing that before it was patched exposed a potential hardware problem that now that the patch has gone out may have never even shown up if they had actually had this particular build that's live today go live prior to the beta? Then maybe cards would have never died and we never would have known. So was it some weird perfect storm of events that led to EVGA now sending out RMA cards? I think so. But the best news here is that obviously if you've got an EVGA card, open an RMA, talk to them, give them the circumstances, your serial number, all that sort of stuff. And at least as of the time I talked to them today, replacement cards for those that have already RMA'd yesterday or prior to, because I guess during the alpha some cards died as well, they are sending out replacement cards already, which is awesome. You don't have to wait for the inventory because at least those that, as up until right now, had RMAs, there are cards in stock for them to replace them with. So you're not waiting months with no card. You actually, it sounds like potentially even cross shipping, which is very, very rare. EVGA's customer service, not sponsored. This is just my subjective consumer opinion. One of the best customer services you guys can possibly have out there in the wild. So anyway, couldn't get anything to happen, which I sort of expected with the patch, but I was kind of hoping to maybe uncover some sort of a weird combination of stuff that could have led to failure, and it didn't happen. So that's good news. You guys asked me to do this, I did it. My card survived, thank goodness. This is the exact one I was talking about putting in Skunkworks, the one that I lapped and everything, because I put the air cooler back on it, and now I'm glad it's alive, because I can put it in that Skunkworks build, which will continue now that we're done with this week's drama. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can actually win your very own RTX 3090 for the Win 3, which is really odd to say because I'm sure people will be like, I don't want that card, it's gonna explode. Clearly it didn't, and it's free, don't complain. Link is down below. That giveaway is ending in only a few days. Last chance to sign up. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. Did you hear that? It's all... Thanks for watching, guys, and as always...